and Anna. And tonight we have a special secret guest that we will be bringing in later on. I'm going to go over some housekeeping and we will get started for the show. Please do not be shy to jump in and say what you want to say. And if you're wrong, 1,000 people will pounce on you immediately because that's what we do. Just kidding. No, it's all good. As long as you're here to learn, that's what matters. The live show discussion topics, as always, include anything you feel is newsworthy about anti-racism, bigotry, inequality, and corruption in America. And that's kind of everything. The show's meant to be an opportunity for viewers to speak their mind and to have a cathartic time, and also to serve as an educational tool in cultural competency for mostly beginners to understanding and focusing on the truth about systemic racism in America. Quick announcement, and we will get started on today's topic. So right here, I will send it on its way. If you would like to, T, welcome, yay, T. Thanks for being here. If you would like to send me breaking news, which a lot of people do, and I love it, please do so. And you can write to me personally there and say what you want to say. And I get everything. I get oh, we hate you and this and that, to a lot of good things too. But it's a mix. If you want to call in later on, here is the number. Boop. And I know you might have questions for our special guest. Tonight's topic, let's get to it. Tonight's topic is a strange one, and it's going to be kind of a basic one, but it's with systemic racism, it's always very complicated. Tonight's topic is about recognizing the power of systemic racism as a cultural issue in the aggregate, instead of pointing fingers. You're a racist, you're a racist, you're a racist. They might be, I don't know, but that's not how you, apparently the experts say that's not really how you're going to solve things. Just to make it crystal clear, we have a government that is run by the wealthiest elites. And they have absolutely, in my humble opinion, absolutely no desire to bring equity and justice to this country. And we'll get into that later. But anyway, let me introduce our topic and give a quick background for people who are just new. And then I'm going to bring in the surprise person. Okay, because I love talking a little too much. All right, it's time for racism, anti-racism, or racism 101, whatever you want to call it. First part of our show today is for folks who are new to learning about systemic racism and bigotry. We all know it's imperative that white folks take racial responsibility, but this can be a little bit different than just learning any old benign topic. There's no large-scale system in place in the U.S. where we would automatically be, and everybody be educated about systemic racism. Okay, we can catch on, we can read when we get older, but there's no place where everybody is going to be informed about what's going down. Okay, so we all kind of catch on, or some of us don't. The school offers us whitewash history. Maybe in February they'll mention a few things, but they don't offer us what really happened in history. Not even close. There are thousands and thousands of events that they left out, and they matter. Details matter. Okay, and they were left out on purpose. So for tonight's, if you think about in the 60s, we're still basically very close to as segregated as we were then. I mean, there aren't too many avenues unless your parents know a lot and decided to raise you responsibly. I don't know. So tonight's topic is recognizing racism as an institutional issue. So why is it important to view systemic racism as a system? As a system that none of us invented and none of us individually caused, yet once we're here, we kind of need to take some responsibility once we're hatched. Let me explain. And don't worry, I am not forgetting about our guest, our new guest. I'm just holding out on everybody. for the surprise. Let's break this down. Let's say I'm going to use a pool example. It's not perfect, but it's close. No one here today enslaved a person. I hope. I hope you didn't. If you did, I don't want to hear about it because that's like very, very illegal and like just kidding. Okay. And no one here was an enslaver or a slave. So, but you see, we still benefit from the free labor. I mean, enslaving human beings against their will and brutalizing them and making them work over centuries, it made our nation rich and fast and wealthy. So here's the way I look at it. Would you walk by someone who is slowly drowning in a pool because you didn't build the pool? You see them, but you're like, I didn't build it. I didn't build the system. I was just born into it. I just happened to be here. No, of course not. Would you walk by somebody slowly drowning because you didn't shove them in? There might be a few people swimming really well in there. Maybe there's some Olympic athletes in there, but somebody's drowning. Well, you didn't shove them in, so no. So why the hell do most white people completely ignore systemic racism? There's a lot of reasons. Does it mean we should blame them for their ancestors' past? No. However, there comes a time in your life where it just doesn't cut it. The ignorance, it just doesn't cut it. You're on this planet. And there's a lot of issues that make us like, oh, we just don't get it. Well, you know what? We get it, at least to some extent. Okay? We do get it. We don't want to get it, a lot of us. So here's a little bit of what I'm going to talk about tonight. And that is what does work. And blaming all white people for all the problems of the world is not one of them. That being said, certainly, if you are watching this happen and you're benefiting from it and then there's a certain point in which you are responsible for perpetuating it. Most of us don't have much power, So the system that experts say we should use is a combined system of individual awareness and pinpointing, breaking down, and dismantling the systems of power. So let me bring in our guest to have a word about that. And then, of course, I will blab on and on. Okay. And here he is. Welcome. Let's get your sound on so I can hear ya.
Hi, guys.
Yay! Please welcome Kevin. And I am extremely happy to have you here. And Anastasia is going to be around. She's going to be around. This is Kevin Kramer of the Palm Collective. And do you want to tell a little bit real fast about what you do?
Oh, so yes, my name is Kevin Kramer. I am from Wilmington, Delaware. I am a full-time revolutionary. Oh, sorry. I'm a full-time revolutionary. I know. I'm here now. I'm a full-time revolutionary and the director of community engagement at the Palm Collective and also a co-founder. Side note, I quit my job on January 6th to pursue fighting for liberation for all of us full-time. Yes, that is me.
Sweet. Well, I'm very happy to have you. It was a great surprise. And so, of course, I'm going to just keep blabbing. One example of dismantling a system. Let's say, okay, I'm going to give a really goofy example. Don't make fun of me. Okay, or you can if you want. All right, really fast. And remember, the show is geared towards educating white folks. I don't educate Black people, no offense intended. I don't educate African Americans. I do not educate Indigenous people, people of mixed heritage. No. They educate me if I'm lucky. Okay? Why? How would I know better how to solve systemic racism problems as a white woman? No. Okay? So everything I've learned is from other people, non-white people, although I have learned a few things from people like Jane Elliott, who is a white person too. That being said, here's an example we can all relate to, and it's a little goofy. I'm being silly because I'm losing my shit today, okay? Let's say I'm an overt racist, and I think that Black people shouldn't have access to voting. Give me a break. I'm late for my Klan meeting. but I'm not too late to tell my black neighbor that she shouldn't be allowed to vote. That's my opinion. That she's worthless. That she shouldn't be able to have a say in who wins the election or who has power. Well, short of a physical attack, she's probably just going to ignore me and think I'm a very, very freaky, horrible person who's really racist and maybe like has some mental illness going on. But I can't stop her from voting. I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face. I can be a jerk, but the state can. Let me repeat that. I cannot stop her, but the state can. They hold the power. And that's what we're talking about tonight. The power.
I love this. I love
Jump
the
in
idea of having this,
anytime you
I
wish.
love the idea of having this conversation and talking about power and talking about the systems that are placed and who invented the systems. So I always hear terms in regards to Black people, that Black people are like crabs in a barrel, like, you know what I'm saying, which is a very false narrative. But the point of this is, we want to get to this system, is that if Black people are crabs in a barrel, who built the barrel? Who designed the barrel? Who got the nails and the wood? Who gathered it? Like, and it's kind of like the same. And if I take race out the situation, and I take what's happening here in the United States, what's been happening here since this place. Well, remember, the system of racism has been around. It's older than this country. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Right.
So it's the same question we ask to why are poor countries poor?
So
You know what I'm saying? Like,
can you say that again? What or what?
why are poor countries poor? I'm a
Well, that.
politics major and sociology major. Uh,
Yeah.
so when you think about that, it's not to say that they got here on their own accord. No, there was a lot of things that happened to get them to this situation of colonizing. There's a lot of imperialism, like, you know what I'm saying, the
Power.
spread of Christianity. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of different tools that white supremacists use to cultivate the status that is the current creation of all of the countries, all the poor countries that we see right now. So in the same breath, like, yes, when we think about Africa, when we think about Cuba, when we think about Venezuela, when we think about all the different countries, India, Australia, like Oceania, like, if you want to be correct, like, when we
Oceania.
think
Yeah.
about all of those places and all these places that have Black, darker people that reside in,
Mm-hmm.
it's us to be mindful to think about how they get here in the first place and who is responsible for them being in this state. So we can't talk about El Salvador having embezzlement and El Salvador having corruption and El Salvador
Mm-hmm.
having uh, police brutality and being a poor nation and poverty without acknowledging
They're
the
not isolated.
extractive harm,
Mm-hmm.
the perpetuated harm, the violence, the colonization, the imperialism, the capitalism
Right.
that was
Right.
put on to El Salvador to put them in the state and the conditions that they live in now.
An
And that
example.
so
Right.
in that example is the account. We're then it's like, who's responsible for their outcomes, because they're not the beneficiaries of their own oppression. I'm going to repeat that. They are not the beneficiaries of their own oppression, and vice versa, throwing it back into race into the United States. Neither are Black people, neither are brown people, neither are indigenous people. We are not the beneficiaries of our own oppression, and acknowledging that racism, white supremacy, systemic racism, all these things equate for a system that was built before the federal government of the United States of America even existed. There has to be accountability, which is justice, that needs to take place. So maybe you have not enslaved people. Maybe I have not enslaved people, because Black people did own slaves, and so did and so did indigenous people, because we weren't seen as humans. So therefore, when you are someone's property, when you are the equivalent of an iPhone 14 that's about to come out, when you're very lucrative and very valuable,
Okay.
you human life goes out of context, and that's why everybody and their mother was owning human beings during this time.
Especially women.
So
Especially women,
that
because that was the only property we white women could actually enslave
oh
a human and own them. And
oh
so,
so
did we own
that
them?
acknowledgement in that, and knowing that, yes, you may not have not physically owned slaves or owned people, African people, but like you said earlier, you are reaping the benefits of the system that has been laid out for you. The beauty standards that have been laid out for you.
Right,
Like you know,
absolutely.
the confidence you get to that you get to walk in a room has been laid out for you. The reason that you get to go to the banks, get the schools, anything of that has been
You
laid
have the
out
benefit of the doubt, and
solely,
everybody else doesn't.
solely because of what you look like. So therefore, you may
Right.
not be, you may not be to blame, but you are reaping the benefit of your
Mhm.
ancestors. And if they're not your ancestors, you are reaping the benefit of people that look like you. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you
Absolutely.
are it doesn't matter Afro-Brazilian. The moment you step on this soil, you are treated like every other black person that lives here. So vice
And that's a
versa.
tough lesson
If
to
you
learn.
are Cuban, if you are white passing Cuban, more like Spaniard, and you step on the grounds of the United States of America, you then get to assimilate right into the whiteness and the supremacy and the racism that
Mhm.
gets the benefits solely because you look like it. So it is up to white people to be not allies, but co-conspirators and accomplices to people of color, so that you can use your power. So it's not to say that white people are less powerful because they're not the government. No, 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 no. They are very motherfucking powerful, because when they stormed that Capitol, it showed how
Mhm.
powerful whiteness is. Where whiteness is
Mhm.
very motherfucking powerful and very motherfucking lucrative to being able to just live freely. So that's
Right,
why
and
it's
I agree with that. And on an individual level,
important.
sure, when they stormed that Capitol and they didn't get killed, it wasn't a freaking bloodbath. That showed just like privilege beyond. What I'm talking about is placing the blame and saying you, because you exist as white, you're in charge of what my ancestors or your ancestors did. Well, you can say that, but if they're doing nothing to help and to stop and to stand up for what's right, yeah, they just made themselves responsible because they're perpetuating it.
Even if they don't, even if you don't perpetuate it, even if you are you the moment you come out your mother's womb white as snow, the moment you come out of your mother's womb white as snow, or you come here white passing or white,
Mm-hmm.
you are being held responsible. Why? Not because of who you did and who you are, solely because of what you look like, and we know that your existence on how you show up on this earth has power. Can
Right. And being held responsible isn't the same as blaming somebody. And because
yes,
blaming doesn't do anything, being held responsible is just everyone, we're all
yes.
held responsible for our own actions. And once we hatch and come out and we're like, okay, we see we have this privilege. Well, of course, we are
It's
responsible for
accountability. It's
sharing the
accountability.
what?
I said it's accountability. You know
Right,
what I'm
right. And
saying?
that makes total sense. And so I guess what the research is showing is that yes, making people accountable or forcing people to be accountable or at least educating them is incredibly important. But for some reason, it it isn't cutting it. Now I understand why it's not cutting it. Our government is absolutely we could have an anti-racist society if we wanted to. The wealthiest elites who run the place don't want us to. This is not an accident. Things are working just as planned. Um, this is all a plan. It's all a little charade. Okay, we could have anti-racism. We don't. We, when I say collectively, people in
When we
power
say,
don't want it.
like, let's be honest. Like when we say
Can you?
like being anti, let's be honest about when we talk about being anti-racist. Anti-racist is not something that lies solely in white people, because anti being racist, being a like I hold myself accountable to being a capitalist sometimes, because I first learned it from the people who gave it to me. Like, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I hold myself to be also being anti-black sometimes, because I first learned it from the people who gave it to me. And that lies in all of us. So being anti-racist is having the acknowledgement and the consciousness to be vulnerable with yourself and being open with yourself to have the necessary conversations. It's something that you have to work for daily. No one just walks up and say, I'm not racist anymore. It's
Of
something
course
that
not.
it's something you have to work for every single day. Why? Because it's taught to us. It's seen everywhere.
Absolutely.
And if you think that it's not seeping in, you're lying to yourself. Like it's
Right,
seeping
and for white
in.
people, no, absolutely, and for white folks, we'll never get there. The continuum for anti-racism is a lifelong process that we will never get to. But it doesn't mean we don't try. It doesn't mean we don't do the best we can. And it's not a zero-sum game, like people in the old days and probably today like to think. We have enough equity and justice for everybody here. It's just it's how we look at things, and we have been brainwashed, every last one of us,
Every
because
last
we
one
live
of us.
here. Every one of
Every
us.
last
Now,
one of us.
it hits some of us harder than others because we benefit from it, and because we really can live our entire. There are people who will live and do their entire freaking lives having absolutely no clue what systemic racism is and their part and their role in perpetuating it. They have no clue, and they can do that, and that's called privilege. That's extreme privilege.
I want to read this comment, and it says that everyone is a victim of racism. Like we all are victims of racism, and I want to be very, for example, because for example, I know I'm trying to keep projecting. Let me know if you guys can't hear me.
Yeah.
I want to say this very clearly. Because of racism, because of the world in which we live in, because of the doctrine that is white supremacy, because it exists, I have white students that I take care of, like I'm saying, that I work with. And I know that black women and black girls have certain sayings and things that they get to do solely because they had to create them because they're put down. You follow my brain. So when you hear terms of black girl magic or black boy joy, those words come from endurement to make you feel better about yourself because the world makes you feel worse about
They're
yourself.
putting you down. So yeah,
You have to create things to glorify yourself. But
absolutely.
because of racism, my white girls, they can't say out loud. They have been denied the right to proclaim themselves as beautiful. There's no you can't
Mm-hmm.
say
Mm-hmm.
can't be like
Mm-hmm.
I'm a white girl and I love my skin.
Right, racism, because then racism
Because,
destroys
and, not, and,
everybody.
and not
Yeah.
to say that you can't say that because you have every right to be because you're a human being. You're allowed to call
Mm-hmm.
yourself
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. But because of racism,
Mm-hmm.
because of white supremacy, that because of the system, it has robbed people, every person, of their individuality to just sincerely
Outstanding point.
show up as
Outstanding
themselves,
point.
and be accepted in their full capacity, how they move this earth. So now everybody has to rethink and reevaluate how we show up because of the systems that are in place. And because not just systems, some of these things are ideologies, because some
Mm-hmm.
people believe this.
Mm-hmm.
Some people believe that other people are inferior to them. And because so we can never take that out the loop either. That
Right, but there are extremists who do
you may
believe
not
that.
be you may not be blaming yourself for it, or you may not be to blame for it, but you carry ideologies which I'm also going to acknowledge that have been seeped in and have been taught to you. But unless you take the time to emancipate your brain and think differently and start to question why you see things a certain way, why you act a certain way, why you spend the money the way you spend the money, why you show up at the certain stores that you
Mm-hmm.
show up as,
Mm-hmm.
you are not you are actively being an accomplice to racism.
Right, and I love the point you made that racism. We think, oh, racism is perpetuated by the white people and the the aggregate system, but it hurts us too, and that's something we're going to get into in this next video. We're going to get into white folks. We have a ton of learning to do, a ton. It's lifelong, intensive, and it'll only make you a better person and understand your world much better. You'll like yourself better too, because I'm sorry, there is not a white person on this planet over a certain age, age of kind of you're cognizant, that doesn't have some sort of cognitive dissonance at some level about the way we treat white folks. I'll give you a quick example.
Uh,
I say this almost every time. Jane Elliott constantly says to this is what she says to her audiences of hundreds of people: raise your hand, audience, if you'd like to be treated the way we treat black people in America today. And nobody raises their hand. So she says,
because
excuse me.
they know that
Well,
it
that's my
fucking
point.
sucks. Like, you know what I'm saying? That it fucking sucks. That like, and the crazy thing is that it's very anticlimactic that I hear it in the comments that says European standards of beauty will always be enforced. It's very anticlimactic that people don't want to put themselves in black shoes, but want to be in black bodies, baby. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
Like
that's a whole
they
nother,
want,
right. To me, that's a whole nother
it's
thing. We
not,
love,
but it's not a whole nother thing. That is an inherently racist, because you are choosing to then bash, break down, tear down, neglect, destroy black culture, while also trying to assimilate, take from, deprive,
right,
and make your black people of their
Kevin,
culture. So it's
right.
very, and that in itself is if the beauty system is a system, that is in itself is how can I put this, is a pillar in the
Right.
racial hierarchy, and
Right.
like
And what I
in
was
the
talking about Jane Elliott is that she tells she tells the audience, what do you mean you don't know much about racism? You actually do. You do know, because you don't want to be treated like we treat them. But so you actually do know something. When I said another thing, that is another thing in racism, not a separate from racism, but what it is what you're talking about, I believe, is basically white folks. We love black music, we love black athletes, we love black dancing, we love this, we love that. We just don't give a shit about the actual person's human rights. Okay,
facts. And
we
you
love
also
taking all
love
the
the
stuff, we love
features,
the hair, we love, oh, we want to touch your hair, we sure do want to touch your hair.
the features as well. That's a like
Right.
that's that I
Oh yeah,
can't.
we want to
I have
have
an
nice thick
8-year-old
lips, we want to
niece.
have, yeah, no, we want it all, we just don't want you.
I have a 14-year-old niece, and she's heavy set, and complexion is beautiful as the night, child, like the stars that twinkle.
Mhm.
And she asked me, I saw her look in the mirror and ask herself if she was ugly. And I, I burst into tears, and it was a hot mess, and we cried and we talked, and it was a whole moment. But like that, this level of whiteness and that this level of anti-blackness that is taught to us, that is
Oh,
ingrained in all of us,
yeah.
is it's a part of the contribution to oppression. But I would love to see this
Absolutely.
video. I would love to see this video that you're
Absolutely.
talking
And so tonight's, this is actually excellent conversation, and I really appreciate you. I agree with everything. What tonight's purpose is mainly just to talk about the power of the system, which, yeah, is upheld by the people who vote for the people to get into the system and make the system. But individually, white folks, you know, you have power to be really rotten in individual racism, but of a lot of us, unless you can fire somebody, unless you can, we get privileges and all that, but the power to truly make you lose your job, the power to not let you vote, the power to, that is, you gotta have some power to do that shit. That's, so here's the thing, it's collective. We're not blaming white people for their ancestors' choices, but once you're here, all of a sudden you do need to take responsibility,
Oh wait,
or you are up.
I am blaming white
You are
people for their ancestors' choices. Their
okay. Well,
ancestors'
you might be,
choices
but
are to blame, and it's easy. But it's easy for, and now this needs to be corrected, because it's easy for
mhm.
white people not to think that way, and that makes because it makes you feel less guilty. No, it's okay to put yourself in the hot seat, and it's okay to center, black people. And this power that we talk about, you may not have the power to change the laws or the government, and hence that the government is ran by white people, elitists who are white men, but
Mhm.
you sure enough do have every right to call, for example, when we see
To
black
what?
children,
To
listen,
what? To call it out?
when we, yes, when we see black children have to cut their locks in the middle of games, and no one in the audience
Right.
stands up and
Right.
says anything, you are all at fault. When we see black children in the classroom who are being discriminated against, and we say and we do nothing about it, you are at fault.
But that's
You are
not our
just,
ancestors, Kevin. That's us.
no, I'm not talking.
That's
I'm not
us.
talking about the ancestors. I'm talking about the. I wasn't talking about the ancestors. I was talking about that responsibility. Like, you have every right to say something about it, and you
Well, of
should
course
say
you do.
something.
Now, of course you do. Now, I'm not saying I'm saying that as well. What I heard you saying was that you actually do blame people for their ancestors' past. Well, here's the thing. I understand. I don't really. I'm kind of getting lost here for a minute, which is fine. It's a good conversation.
Mhm.
I didn't know my ancestors. Okay. Now, I benefit as a white person, absolutely, from people who look like me, like you said. Okay. People who look like me. I absolutely own that. But I'm only, when I'm born on this earth, at the point that I'm born here and catch on, and I better take responsibility, which I personally try to, and all white people should take responsibility. It's called taking racial responsibility. If I see something going on, like hell, you think I don't say something? Of course I do. But there's a difference
There's
between
nothing
blaming me for
wrong.
my ancestors' behavior and not doing anything when I'm living it right now.
Facts, facts,
That's a
facts. But there's
big
nothing
difference.
wrong. So I think the caught up on like I think I agree with you on this on blaming the individual. But there's nothing wrong about blaming your ancestors
Of
for
course.
what. And I think because like it's people always want to be able to accept people's successes, inherit the successes, but no one never wants to inherit the failures because I have to inherit all of it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you have to be conscious and you have to be very mindful that you are your, like, I am my ancestors. Like, you know what I'm saying? I am my ancestors, the failures, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So yes, I could choose to do something or change something, but at the end of the day, if I'm going to inherit my family's wealth and know that my family's wealth came from slave labor, I take the toll. Like we can't say pass the baton to the forefront without, you know what I'm saying? Like
I know what you're saying.
there has to be a level, and it's not really about blame. It's more about acknowledgement. Like
Yeah, see, I think you're
you have to
confusing and not
take that acknowledgement.
acknowledgement with everybody should acknowledge it. Of course, we know
But I'm saying
we
that white
know.
people don't.
Oh, a lot of white people don't.
You know
Everybody
what I'm
should
saying?
acknowledge it.
And that's the
We
point.
we might not know our history, but we freaking know our history. We just that's our own doing. I'm talking about
Mhm,
there is a huge difference between acknowledging and blaming.
mhm.
Acknowledging, hello, it's history. If you don't know your own racial history, then that's just ignorance. That's
Child, it's really
absolutely.
hard to when they're taking it out to school, child.
I know. Well,
It's
they
really hard
already
to
took it
read
out before they
history
even had
when
it
they're
in. I
taking it
mean,
out of school. My friend told me literally in Florida,
never
if
had it
someone feels
before.
uncomfortable talking about that, when they bring up the Holocaust in class, if a child feels uncomfortable about hearing what
It's the parents
happened,
that feel uncomfortable. It's not the
they
children.
have to take it. The teacher has to literally take that part out of the subject matter.
In
Like,
certain states, they've made that because
yeah,
they're so, that's systemic racism. Systemic
mhm.
racism is the ability to say, you can't talk about systemic racism. You can't tell our real history. That is systemic racism.
Systemic
And I couldn't
racism is
stop my
that.
state from doing that if I tried. But I live on this planet and I absolutely acknowledge what white people who look like me did before me and are still doing. But giving the blame for the past is some whole nother ballgame. I do blame people for
They
now.
just lie and ignore it.
If you
Let it
do,
be a problem with
if
their
you watch
community
some child get
and
their
with the
hair cut,
community. Oh,
if you watch some child get their hair cut and you don't say something, it is absolutely your responsibility.
I want
Everybody
to
else
read
can
this
watch
comment. It
Mahakos.
says, "Nah,
Whose
they
are you
know
reading?
100%. 100%. They just lie and ignore it. Let it be a problem with their community, and they're heading to the major news companies. Like for real. Like I say that all the time. Look, 3,000 black girls go missing every single month. No one does nothing. White child goes missing. Child, we're up in arms. We're on milk cartons. You know what I'm saying? Crack. The government smuggles crack into black neighborhoods. Child, it's on the news. It's a pandemic. They got to write all these bills to throw people in jail. Opioids take over, child. It's a humanitarian crisis. Like, you know,
Well,
black people are
well,
getting
right,
dragged out on the
right.
streets on live on channel 6 Fox News
Right.
live.
But here's the
Live.
point. Here's the point. All these things are systemic things that were done and are not recognized.
Mm-hmm.
They are not recognized. Do you, who knows about the
Some of
Devil's
them
Punch
are
Bowl? Do
recognized,
you know what
child,
the
because
Devil's Punch
people
Bowl is?
make
I know
money
you
off of
probably
them.
do. You
People
probably
make
do.
money off of
Most
them.
what?
Some of them are recognized. People make money off of them.
Well, right. What I'm trying to say is our history, our I call it racial history. It's really just history, but let's just be clear. It's racial history. Our racial history has been absolutely whitewashed, destroyed, demolished, ended, not told, erased, taken away. And if you study real history, like all the things like I'm saying, the Devil's Punch, but all these things, you'd have to be insane not to see what we've done as a people. You'd have to be insane. I mean, at every turn, we've tried to stop the accumulation. We've oppressed. We've marginalized. We've murdered. We've stopped people from voting. We've done everything within the power of the system to keep white, black, brown, indigenous people, African Americans, non-white folk from accumulating generational wealth in a system that's capitalism on steroids. Um, but I mean, I feel like we're kind of mincing words here a little bit. White folks need to take absolute racial responsibility from the second they're here. But when I say blaming, like Columbus is now considered like to have been a white man. Well, he did horrendous things, but I don't know him. I'm not Italian, you know? So it's like, or I'm not Spanish. I'm not, you know, whatever. So it's like, it's that kind of thing. Like you can acknowledge what he did was barbaric, but to say like, oh, I should feel so bad about that. No, I feel bad about the perpetuation of it now where I'm living, where I can try to do something. And I
Well, I
feel
think it
horrible when people
starts
don't.
there though. But
What?
I think it starts if we're saying that it's an individual thing, it does start there though. Like you should
Absolutely.
personally, like, you know what I'm saying, you
Absolutely.
should feel bad. It should make you feel bad because like that's what makes us human. You know what I'm saying? Is our ability to have empathy for others. That is cognitively what makes us human and not a narcissist. Like, so it is
Well,
okay. It is okay to think about the circumstances of what your
absolutely.
ancestors did and be like, damn, like that's some fucked up shit. I feel bad. And then what you do with that is that you don't turn around and give your white guilt, child, because no one wants that, child, unless to be honest, for me, unless it's the coins that come with it, because I'm getting my reparations by one means or the other. But
Well, feeling bad, like I said,
in the
feeling bad is
second
one
one,
thing, but if you do nothing about it, what does that do? I mean,
facts,
I don't
facts,
I
facts.
don't think they should feel bad. I think they should
If
do
you do
something about it.
if you do
Feeling
nothing
bad's a
about
waste of
it, you
time.
are just as bad. And the crazy thing, and that works across the board. And that goes for
Can you say that
everybody.
again? I missed
That
that.
goes across the board. That goes for all races. That goes for all people. Just because you feel bad, that does
Right,
nothing. It's like
right,
it's the actions.
right. Go
Actions
feel
speak.
bad in a
Our
corner
actions speak
somewhere
louder
because
than
if you're doing
words.
nothing, right, just like if you apologize or if you say I'm not racist, that's ridiculous. Don't say it. Don't apologize. Prove it. Show it in
Live
your
it.
behavior over time.
Relearn. Do it over your behavior over time. Relearn. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think the reason why it's also we have to I love taking the time to acknowledge why it's hard. It's
Oh, it's
hard to
very
do
hard. Yeah.
because it's scary. It's hard to do because it's also unfamiliar. If all I've ever told you and ever taught you was that the sky was blue, and I always use this analogy, and one day a little birdie comes and says like the sky's not blue, it's indigo.
Well,
Like, you know what
actually,
I'm
it's
saying?
very upsetting.
Which is very similar, child. Like, it's very similar. It's very similar. But for all you ever known was blue, and because of your
Absolutely.
perception, let me finish, because of your
Mhm.
perception, because of what our perception is key, because you see something as blue, because of that's how you perceived it, that's how you interact with it.
Well,
So
of course.
therefore, if all you've ever known is that the police are so here to protect and serve you,
That's how
and
I was raised.
that's how you were raised, that's what you learned, that's how you interact with
Absolutely.
it, that's what your perception is for you, that is your truth. But in actuality, it's not blue, it's
But once
indigo.
you grow up and you become a
And
big
you
kid
have to realize
and
those
you
things.
see it ain't true, you got to figure things out. And
You have
that's
to hold
still our
yourself
responsibility.
responsible. You have to hold your responsibility. And I'm not giving
Right.
white people no motherfucking slack in the 21st century when all
Neither
this
am
shit's
I.
on Google.
No, I'm not either. If you've
It's
seen
all
anything
on
I ever have
Google.
done, you'd
No, but
know
like
I'm
I love this because
absolutely
you
not.
say your show is to teach white people. So like when they watch this and if they're watching now, child, it's about that. That is so important that you need to take the time and read and learn. Like, you know what I'm saying? And
That's all we
be
ever
very,
talk about on this show,
because
Kevin.
if you don't learn, if you don't read, like you're doomed to repeat
It's a
it. And like
choice.
that to repeat it,
Well, it's a choice.
you'll enable it and you'll become
Right.
it.
No, it's absolutely a choice. And even stronger than that is also that doing nothing, there's no neutral. And we talk about that constantly. There's no neutral. Neutral is on the side of the marginalizer and oppressor. There's no neutral.
There's
Um,
black bodies are dying left and right. y'all.
Right, and it's
Like, on an epic scale, like I'm like being shot down, torn down by the police, let alone by by the healthcare system. And I wanted to bring this up because we
sure.
all know that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. And even though Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood was intentionally meant to, like, do
For
some ethnic
eugenics.
cleansing of Black people, we can't
Strictly
acknowledge
eugenics.
that now Black women are going to be forced to have babies. But before they're being forced to have babies and be human incubators, Black women also die 3 times higher on the operating table, giving natural vaginal births already. So now,
In some places, it's higher even than that.
and
It's more than
it's
5
higher than that,
times.
and
New York
people
City, it
know
is.
this, and they know this. You know what I'm saying? The doctors know this.
Absolutely.
These statistics are online. You can read them. Like, they know
Well,
this.
they're very
And
clear. This medical racism is rampant. Look at COVID. For the love of God, there's no reason that Black, Brown, and Indigenous people um, should. I was going to address somebody saying something about brown people, not Hispanics, not being brown and black. That's definitely an opinion, but I won't get into that. That's not. If a person who's brown, Hispanic needs to be able to talk about that. That's not really our place if we're not brown, black, if we're not of that heritage. But anyway, I won't get into that. I just saw a comment back there. But let's watch the video. Um, I, I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying, and if you watch what I do and what I say and all that, anyone who follows the show should know all this already. But we do have a new people. We do have new people, and I account for new people. I will never say this is an advanced show. We get into some advanced topics, but as a white person, it's not really appropriate for me to delve anywhere past white folks. It really isn't. I don't know more about how to solve these problems than the people living it. So it's kind of, I work with beginners who are white because that's how I personally am trying to take some responsibility.
And I think I want to
And
speak directly to the beginners before we watch the video. I want to
absolutely. Go ahead.
speak directly to the beginners before we watch the video. If you're beginning this journey on being actively anti-racist and,
Mhm.
like, just being at one with your privilege, it first starts with having an open heart and being vulnerable, because it's hard to do. You have to be willing to be vulnerable with yourself.
I say,
And
drop your ego at the
and
door.
literally, like, even the ones that don't, like, I have best friends who are white, or white passing, like, you know what I'm saying? And
That's
I have
wonderful.
to, and they have to constantly do the work of being vulnerable with themselves, to having the necessary conversations. There's nothing wrong about asking questions to learn. There's nothing wrong about doing the research and applying the
Mhm.
homework. So I just feel as though, like, it's very important that
It is work.
when you're taking this journey on being actively anti-racist, that you are being vulnerable with yourself, you're being open, and you're educating yourself. And when you take the time to do that, those 3 steps will lead you from going from a co-conspirator. And I'm calling most people a co-conspirator because most human beings, it's in our nature, even though it may not fit on the right race, it's in our nature not to just want to see bad things happen to people. Like, it's just what makes us human. But it will take that step from going from a co-conspirator and transition you from a co-conspirator into a accomplice. And I think that's what's really needed.
Right. And I wanted to just jump in to explain, if I don't want to speak for you, but what Kevin's talking about, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is, and hello, Avenge the Ancestors. Thank you for being here. What he's trying to refer to is, like I was saying earlier, the anti-racism continuum for white folks is a lifelong venture. It's not, there's no end to it. Okay. We will never know what it feels like to live in a society that's created, based on, propagated for white supremacy. Okay.
None
So
of us
we're
do,
never
though.
going to get
None
there.
of us do. It's not just white
There's,
people. None of us do.
well,
We are all navigating the same systems, like the same. For example, I can boldly speak on uh, interracial violence, because it happens with any ethnic group, and in that, we have to understand as a people that, and I'm speaking to Black people who are watching this, that the violence that we commit against each other is the violence that was first taught to us. Like, so
Right.
therefore, that's something that we have to relearn. Like, you know
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying?
It has historical,
We have to relearn. We have to unlearn those things,
has a
unlearn those
historical
habits,
background.
unlearn those behaviors because they're
Absolutely.
passed on to us. Like you can call that generational curse if you want to, but
Well,
at
just
the
as white
end of
people
the
have this
day, at
racism
the
passed
end of the
on in
day,
generationally.
it's about accountability, and it happens on all fronts. We are just all touching a different part of the nice
Right. No,
the nice
I agree.
elephant that's called white supremacy.
I agree, and I'm not saying, oh, white supremacists, has like you just take no responsibility if you're not white. It's not. No, of course not. Everyone has to take personal responsibility for everything, but as a system, we created it, we perpetuate it, we enjoy the benefits of it. So, for the love of fucking God, jump in and do something to help. It
Or
doesn't.
move to
I
the
think
side
Black and brown people are going to get their equity and their justice. Okay, without
by
us.
any
But
means necessary.
why would we sit and watch? That's like, that's pretty messed up. Why do you sit and watch? They are our fellow humans. We are related.
Because
So,
sitting on your ass is easy to do instead of getting up and doing the goddamn work. And
no excuse.
child, no shade, no tea. I have to say this point. It's real. That everybody and their motherfucking mom, y'all, is reaping the benefits of Black people. You race and gender, you get to go marry whatever the fuck you want because of Black people. Everybody in this fucking son of this country gets to go vote. I'm doing quotation marks, even though 48 out of 50 states have voting rights suppression. Everybody in this fucking country gets to go sit on any public transit they want to, use fucking water fountains if they want to, go to the fucking pool if they want to, because Black people, Black bodies put their motherfucking lives, blood, sweat, and tears on the line. And look at the state of Black people now. There's a lot of motherfuckers in this country of all races living very much more comfortable because Black bodies put their bodies on the line. And because
Right.
Black people were centered at that time, slightly, even though those things were reforms and those are reformative policies that were given to Black people, everybody out of those reformative policies that we were slightly centered, everybody gets to go eat now. Everybody gets to reap those motherfucking
I
benefits.
think what you're trying to say is, can I just like reiterate? I think
Let
what
me
you're
finish.
saying is
Yes,
Black
one
people have
point. Let me finish.
collectively come
Let me finish.
together.
Let me
Oh, go ahead.
finish.
Go ahead. Sorry, I can't. I can barely hear you. I'm sorry.
So I think I'm sorry. I'm trying to think that I'm talking loud enough, and I
For
do
some reason,
apologize
the
if you
sound
guys
isn't
can't
quite
hear me.
right tonight. It's not your
Can
fault.
you hear
It's
me now?
I can hear you. It's just not loud. That's
Oh
all.
wow.
That's why I'm cutting you off. I can't think you're done talking.
Okay, let me finish my last
Okay,
point.
go
My
ahead. Sure.
point of saying was showcasing the civil rights era and showcasing the reformative freedoms that were given to Black people that everybody gets to reap the benefit of.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
everybody's life right now is a little bit more better because Black people were reformatively centered. Imagine what the world would look like if Black people were actually centered. That's very that's a very magical world to live in.
Mhm.
Think about it. Think about if Black people were actually centered, what everybody's lives would look like. Because when we were reformatively centered, shit looks very motherfucking good for a lot of motherfuckers.
And okay, right. And I think what you're trying to say, and this could be like a more simplistic way to put it for people who are just new. I think I get what you're saying, is that Black people have been able to come together in the most incredible way and force all these fight for they fought for their rights and their equity and their justice. And because of that, other people, even white people, women, brown people, uh, people of mixed heritage, everybody, it's like the boat on the waves. When the tide rises, everybody, they've brought everybody up on the backs of their lives. I mean, they've used their lives. We've seen this in every movement. um, Black African American people have basically helped everybody to further their rights. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, in the nutshell, but
Yeah.
I'm taking it less off Black people and putting it into the terms about. I'm taking it off of Black people and really digging into the terms about justice and like about how we fix the issues. Because if you imagine what the world was like 70 years ago, or let's go 80 years ago, let's go 10 years before the civil
Mhm.
rights movement. If you think
Mhm.
about what the world was like before it and what the world was like in the 70s, it kind of is a little bit of a difference. And if you look at it
Oh, there's
now,
a
it's
big difference.
a little bit. I'm saying I'm using the word little bit very motherfucking
Well, because it's not there yet, and it
little
has a
bit.
lot of work to right.
But what you're getting at is the right point. That because
Yeah.
Black people
I'm
were
just trying to make it, like, really basic, like, Black people as a group have been the ones out there with their bodies on the line.
and people reap the benefits.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like I love that. We are the conscience of this country. We because of us, people feel like they can use their voices. Like you know what I'm saying? Because of us, people want to go march. It's like so. It's very, very important to acknowledge that if, not if, when we are centered, everybody wins. And I just want to showcase that because it's the proof is in the pudding. When Black people are centered correctly, not reformatively with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, because those are reforms. And what I mean by reforms is that they were add-ons. They got added on because they weren't included in the beginning. And because of it, it didn't work. And reformative measures don't work because look at this right now. We have a whole voting rights act, but 48 out of
But
50 states have voting rights suppression, and that's why reforms don't work because the system, what was that we were saying earlier, the people in power will find ways to get around the system. Granted, the cause inside the 13th Amendment, like
okay, and
committing a
right,
crime.
right, okay. And I think I understand what you're saying. I wanted to just jump in and say before we do the video, I might never get to the video, but that's okay. These are important points. Um, what I was talking about this I was kind of making up this scenario about individual versus systemic,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to just drive that home. You brought up voting rights. That is a place where, remember, I'm off to my Klan meeting as a white person, and I'm not too late to tell my neighbor I think she doesn't deserve a vote. She's Black. Okay, and I might think, well, that's really mean. But unless I physically stop her, she can probably go vote. Okay, I don't have that power to stop her. However, the state can. Let me explain. The state, the power that may be, does this, and this is what institutional systemic racism. The state can stop her from voting because they hold the power. Let me explain. Um, they can close down the voting places, make it really inconvenient for her to get there. They can make her have IDs that are just inaccessible to her. Close those down too. Close the DMVs down. Close all the make the IDs so expensive that you can hardly afford them. Um, you can shut down all the drop boxes in the area where the non-wealthy, except for where non-wealthy white people live. You can. It's a system. You can. Yes, individuals are. We vote for those people, but it's on a systemic level. I can't stop them if I wanted to.
Right. And I think
And
another
that's
thing
the
is
difference.
and
So
I think that is the difference. And I think it's a really good point when we talk about power, and because I'm very motivational when I think about our being optimistic
well, that's
about
what our video is going to talk about
our
power.
future, is that and we're gonna get as we get to the video in like 60 seconds, is
Fine.
that is that literally I'm sorry to go off on tangents,
Not at
y'all.
all. Not at all. This is a
Is
good conversation, I
it's
think.
it's simply to think that lose my train of thought because like
Sorry,
I'm
it's
trying
okay.
to like thing.
We're talking
Uh
about the power of the government to
oh
do something
that
versus individual.
the federal government only enforces the power that we give them. The
Well,
power
that's what
does
we'd
not
like to
lie.
think.
No, it's not. It's not to like what we think. The
In the
power
day, it was
does.
supposed to be
The,
like that, but
the power of this country
mhm.
lies in the people. Because and if you think I'm lying, why are me and you here in the first place able to be on these Zoom calls? Because people showed the federal government what power looked like in the 1950s and 60s. So if and reformatively, because I'm pretty sure the freedoms that they were thinking about wasn't this. 70 years ago, because they didn't know it was going to turn out like this. They didn't know there was going to be
Well, I think
redlining.
you're right, but I also think
They didn't know
we're
there was going
sliding
to be
backwards.
drugs. They didn't know it was going to be a war on terror, a war on crime. They didn't know all these things. So to think about this is to really understand that we, the people, us, me, you, everybody here watching, we have the power. We just have to be willing to do what is necessary so that it's garnered and pushed out the right way. Because the power that we're surrendering, because we're surrendering it to them. The power we surrender to the federal government now allows us to be here having conversations about power.
Well, I see what you're saying. I both agree and disagree. I mean, I think in the day, that's the way it's ideally supposed to be. Ideally, but I think we're far from idealism when we have people who are 70%, 80%, 90% wanting something, and the people aren't getting it.
Oh,
When
no, no, no,
90% of
because
this American society wants something, then we don't have power.
because we're not using our power.
Well,
You know, because it's we're not using our power. Power when we choose to be sacrificial lambs and give up our power to people to make decisions about it. It's like fool me once, shame on me. How that saying about being fooled goes. If we know, my mother always told me that people will show you who they are. For example, listen, follow my brain. If people show me who they are, if I know that the Democratic Party comes to rob, steal, and kill from the Black community, and I know that the Republican Party doesn't give a rat's ass about anybody, not even their own constituents, why are the United States American citizens still showing up to the ballot box, even though we show up in low numbers? Why are we showing up? Because we have agreed that this system, no one wants to do the work to change the system. We all want to be a part of the system and allow it to work and function the way it is. And since we do that, since we surrender our power to them, they get to then make the decisions about our lives to not care about us.
I think we're saying the same thing. I'm just saying.
But you're misconstruing what I'm talking about people having power. Us physically, let me tell you about how powerful we are. What happens when the Democratic Party doesn't get 92% of the African American vote? What happens when Roe versus Wade was overturned? What happens when every woman that voted blue doesn't show up to work the next day? That is power.
Well, you're saying that we're not willing to put things on the line. We just like the status quo.
You're missing my point. I'm telling you that your mere existence, being a human being in this country, giving your money to the federal government, you, me, everybody has the power to change this if we choose to do what is necessary and not what is easy. It is easy to get up every single day.
That's what I just said just now, is that we're not willing to put ourselves on the line for it. And you said I'm missing the point. That's what I just said. I said we're not willing to put ourselves on the line. We want to have a cushy life and just have status quo.
Yeah, because it's easy for it's easy for other people to do it. So we have to be willing.
We have to get very, very uncomfortable.
We have to be willing to risk it all.
What's happening for a very long time, I think people thought things were going in the right direction in general, at slow, albeit, but in the right direction.
Nope.
Now we aren't having I don't remember a time when I was younger where 90% of the people wanted one thing and they weren't getting it. That I believe has changed. People don't work. It's just changed. I can't get into that part. I'm going to show the video, but I feel like we're mincing words and not really having differences exactly, but more like just having rhetorical differences. I'm not sure, but hey.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree with the things that you're saying, but my point of articulating, I'm definitely talking to you are a white woman. My point of telling you and articulating them the way that I am is that not just for the mere conversation of comprehension, because it needs to be said in the way that I don't have I don't have the time to coddle white people and for the white people that are going to choose to watch this. So it's very important that they hear from a Black queer man exactly the way it's given. So even
I'm just trying to clarify it so they get what you're talking about.
No, but trust me,
you speak at a very high level, and for beginners,
they get it, and that's why it's. And if they don't get it, it goes back to what I said earlier.
They need to learn.
Go
Right.
learn.
Right. And that's fine. And I always tend to, even when Anna's on here, I always tend to, is this what you're saying? Are you trying to say this? So I'm not personally doing it to you. It's just,
No, but like,
I
but
think people underestimate the low levels that a lot of white people are coming in.
Facts.
I mean,
I'm not
we
counting them to
really
be
are
racial dissidents in the conversation about
bad off.
equity, justice, and freedom, because they clearly don't understand it, because if they do, they would be doing it. So like, I agree with you.
Right.
But
We are
it's just
really lower than people think.
it's very important that it's expressed this way, so
Right.
that
Right. Right.
even when you articulate it, it's not what I'm trying to say, it's what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying. They need to hear it from the authentic person and not just me, a white lady, explaining it to them. And I'm a teacher, so you got to forgive me. I'm always trying to simplify things for beginners in every subject. But yeah, no, I got you.
Agreed.
I want them to get what you're saying fully. I know they hear it, but do they?
It's shocking how low level the ignorance is. It is. You know what I'm saying?
Like, I have heard things. Oh my God, I have heard
things. But think they the best thing since like the toaster oven. No shade, no tea.
Well, we just don't. I mean, I don't want to get into it. We just do not. Oh my God, we just do not get it. And I'm not saying everybody, but oh boy, most of us. Because how do I know this? We still have systemic racism rampant. Mm-hmm. If everybody got it, really got it, then we'd be like, "Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous." It's not good for us either. It's hurting our country.
And that's the important thing to know. That's not good for it's not good for us either. And I think the simple way to do it is the best way I do it is I just keep breaking the layers down when I talk to people that don't understand it. Keep breaking the layers down. So I'm getting that the bare bones of the issue, which is the federal government of the United States, because they uphold all this stuff. And then it breaks down from there. But
you used to not have to be a billionaire to run. Now you do. So money is just corrupt. But anyway, let's move on. Do you want to say anything else? Because
no, I'm so good. I like it's my neck. I have the gift for gab, child.
No, you're doing great, and I absolutely agree with you. People need to hear it from not from me, but from the source. But because this is like a beginner show, I'm always trying to like, do you get it? I want to say, like, do you get it? Are you getting him? Are you hearing him? Are you getting him?
And but this is why I'm not letting white people slide. I'm not letting your ignorance be your excuse, because just like in the comments, it says that like Emmett Till, like they all knew that he didn't whistle at that woman, but they chose to go. So
or if they did, who fucking cares?
The dissidents, like, you know what I'm saying? They have the dissidents. They like, even when we think about MLK, like they like to take what they want from MLK.
All the good parts. People fucking hated him.
But it's not because they're ignorant. And it's not because they don't have the smarts. It's because they're making the conscious choice to be violent.
Well, yeah, and a conscious choice to basically be. I mean, I just can't explain to you. I've been working with white people on this stuff for so long. Oh my God, I cannot. Words cannot express how I have had. I don't want to get. I've had people from all over the place.
It also goes back to because they don't want to be like. I'm not just because it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense. It does make sense to you, but because you're not. Remember, I was saying what I was talking about earlier about being vulnerable and open. Because you're not being vulnerable, because you're not being open, the things that make fucking perfect common sense,
they don't want it to make sense.
They're not. It's not even if it's not about. It's not even about them wanting it to make sense, because they're not choosing to let their guard down and be vulnerable. And be
that's
open.
Part of it. That's part of it.
It's not allowing them to let it sink in correctly. Then they automatically write it off as, oh my gosh, it's a lie, or this makes me feel uncomfortable, or I don't understand, or like I'm not briefed in this topic. Bitch, fuck all that shit. Wrong is wrong, right is right.
We're defensive, and so that stops the conversation immediately. And so it doesn't matter what you say because we're not going to be hearing it. No, I mean,
you don't think white people know? You don't think we don't think that white people, the Karens and those people of the world know exactly what the fuck they doing when they call the cops on black people?
No, I do think they
know. They know.
No, I know, but there's a lot of people other than Karens. There's a lot of levels there, but yeah,
all know.
I can't.
They all know.
I think
but because they're not choosing to be open, because they're choosing not to be vulnerable with themselves.
Right? No. I tend to agree with that.
Allow it to seep in.
So I think everybody knows at a certain level.
So So my thing is like, don't discredit them. I'm not selling no white person short, child. Like, I'm not selling you short. You know, and you know.
Well, I mean, like I said at the beginning, Jane Elliott says, "Oh, you don't know about racism? Raise your hand if you'd like to be treated like a black person in America," and no one
Let me
does.
say no.
Right, and I'm agreeing with you, but I think some people know at a certain level, and some people are just obvious. I mean, we're all over the place. There's no excuse. It's the culture we're born into.
Racism is a culture.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an ideology. It is a culture. It's like, snaps and claps. Tarani, yes, Ronnie, racism is a culture. Racism is a culture. Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. Racism is the culture of the world. It is, because if you look at the world real closely. People that are this color in my hand, no shade, no tea, make up a very small percentage of it. And the sad truth and reality is that Black and brown and indigenous people all over the world are seen as less than, or victimized, or brutalized, or torn down, beat down, neglected, forgotten. And that is because some people decide. You ever seen that TV show Avatar? And you're like, everything changed. If you're in it's the but the people probably heard it. Like, if you haven't seen the TV, it's a cartoon. It used to come on
It's a cartoon.
Nickelodeon.
No, I haven't.
And it
Ask
says
Anna. She knows I don't know anything.
It says everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. And I would love, no homework assignment, y'all. Go watch Avatar. Literally just go watch the intro. And you're gonna be like, oh, that's the shit we living in right now. You're right. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
Interesting. All right. Good comments. I'm gonna play this video, and then we're gonna have to wrap it up because some of us are elderly and we need our beauty rest. But this video coming up is kind of interesting because it takes what you might think is an individual incident. Some white person decided, oh no, this was many white people. Many white people in power decided to do something very, very bad. And they did it because if they would rather see everybody suffer than to swim in a swimming pool with Black people, right? And this is how it's done. And this guy's going to explain it. So check it out. And then I want to get your comments afterwards, okay? Because everybody knows what I think already. Okay. So let's do this. Boom. Boom. Boom.
What happened to the world's largest pool? So big that it had sanded beaches. Well, let me show. On June 21st, 1949, in St. Louis, Fairground Park Pool was a jewel of the city. But the first wave of Black swimmers was allowed in after integration, and as you might expect, a mob of white Americans refused to allow this. Starting with 200 people with bricks and knives, they attacked the protesters and started a riot. By the end of the night, thousands of white people had come to terrorize the Black American citizens of St. Louis. I am from St. Louis, and I never heard of this, and I know a lot of you haven't either. But why is it important to dredge up an old race riot today? Well, because this wasn't even the only time a public pool was closed in this way. In Winona, Mississippi, in Montgomery, Alabama. Here's a quote. The council decided to drain the pool rather than share it with their Black neighbors. Later, uncomprehending white children cried as the city contractors poured dirt into the pool, paved it over, and seeded it with grass. Don't get it twisted. The people who were attacked by a mob had it worse than those kids. But the reality is, when those parents came home to explain to them why they were closing the pool, they were taught about American white history in that moment that rather like a cancer, we would rather slowly destroy the body that is keeping us alive. A functioning society rests on a web of mutuality, a willingness among all involved to share enough with one another to accomplish what no one person can do alone. The last 60 years of American politics have been slowly dismantling the public systems that have kept us alive. From roads and bridges to housing and education, this web of mutuality, like Kimberly Jones explains, is what the social contract is. As you watch the other videos or you listen to her podcast or you go to her webinar, you will see so many examples of how white Americans would rather harm themselves than share the world. But I don't want to get all doom and gloom on you because the flip side is actually incredibly hopeful. If destroying a public pool hurts both white kids and black kids, what would happen if we started refilling them? You probably noticed this was a collab. All of these creators are involved. EK has the next video. You can upload your own take.
We're back. I didn't know if you were able to catch all that or if you've seen that before. But he's highlighting this Heather McGhee's very famous book, The Sum of Us, and it talks extensively about how white folks as a collective are so racist. We will harm ourselves as long as it harms black people too. And it's gone downhill the past 50, 60 years. It's been in my lifetime, not to age myself, but things have changed. It might not feel like it because they've always been really, really bad. And yes, cell phones have made people see it more, but it was always there and much worse. But things are starting to really, really get bad. I think we're in the twilight of our democracy. What say you? Were you able to catch that, or have you seen that? I don't want to put you on the spot if you weren't able to.
Oh no, I heard it, and I get it. I think the biggest thing, my biggest takeaway for me is that when we say about the pool, when we say that it hurts both people, it's really important to know that don't put blame on, because it's what happens when when things hurt the both of them. White people then blame black people for why they're hurting, so that it's the
We've all, yeah, right. We do that. I don't know if pools in particular.
it's like it's the oh, like you don't get to you like the pool got destroyed because the black people wanted to come to the pool, not because oh it was wrong.
Couldn't handle having
It
us
was
actually.
wrong
Right,
for us to be like saying that black people couldn't come to the pool. Like,
right.
and that happens. And I love that. I love that ending, and I love
Propaganda.
that connection because that happens. Kurt, that happens every day.
Right. We blame, oh, what about black on black crime? Oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? It's like we'll do anything to deny, to have classic cliche denials of systemic racism. It's what we do. There's only about 30 of them, but we do them over and over and over because we know we have nothing. We created the system. We can choose to perpetuate it, or we can choose to dismantle, fight it like hell, and do whatever it takes.
Like, and then I say that because then that thing, that same, when white people say it to other black people, to white people saying, oh, this is why this is why the pool's blown up now because black people want to come, vice versa, because this is why it's really good for us to unlearn because these things are taught to us. Black people then say to other black people, this is why we can't have nice things. So do you see, like, they are two
nice things because of
sides,
racism and white people
of the same bird flying at the exact same time, and the bird is white, and it's called white supremacy.
Right. And that's because, and part of that is absolutely, and part of that is because we make sure that we do not teach our real racial history. If we white people knew our real racial history, we would shut the fuck up and just be on the team dismantle because we'd be like, oh my God, how have black people done this well? We've done everything. We've done everything in our human power to stop them, yet they still do well. My God.
Because because when you're the people of the sun, when you're phoenixes and we rise from the ashes every single day, and we turn like Rumpelstiltskin, we spin string into gold. It is beyonding. It's magical, child, that we're able to do these things. It is. It's beyond people's comprehension that we're able to do the things that we do. That black women are able to do the things that they do. That we're able to. It blows their fucking minds, but still can't acknowledge that the reason why you cut the light on every single day is because a black man invented the carbon filament.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, if we knew our racial history, the truth of it, we would shut up and we would start catching on and helping.
Yeah, and it goes across. I know someone said about like black people, white people, and it goes across. This is why I really believe that what's that class they were trying to put in schools? about a racial something class or something like that in America. I think it's so needed for us to learn about each other's cultures, about our mannerisms, how
Critical
we
race
act,
theory?
not just black and white, but like for all the people that live
Talking
here.
about critical race theory, or what are you talking about?
I don't know if it's called critical race theory or whatever.
It's not.
All I'm saying is that part of school cannot just be us being in diverse spaces and just seeing diverse people and just living together and going to school every single day. If diversity is not embedded into the curriculum, into the school, into how the school functions, into its mannerisms, then it's not diverse.
Right, of course, because see, Kevin, here's the thing. As a school teacher, former school teacher, and I've taught most recently as well,
Mm-hmm.
part of systemic racism is making sure that it is never allowed to be incorporated. The truth is never allowed to be incorporated into schools. Never. That's part of how we keep systemic racism. Because, of course, if we had a comprehensive program, pre-K through 12,
People
it would
be
take about a year or two for everyone to be like, oh my God.
But do you see how that goes into the power complex where the people this goes back to the systemic racism. When the people at the top, the people that hold the power, the reason why they don't want these things to happen, because if all of us was to realize that they're the ones actually pulling the strings behind the curtain, if all of us had the dissonance to consciously comprehend that all the things that were put in place for every single one of us, white, black, Latin, next the other, that there were actually bigger people to blame, this will be the Hunger
We
Games.
all stop
Statue
blaming
it
black,
already
brown,
is, but
people, and
like
we
it would
start
be.
blaming the richest, wealthiest elites who have taken all their money and used it to take all the power. And that's the thing. So it's not an accident that people fight, fight, fight to keep it out of public schools.
Because picture if we knew, picture if we it's even about our medicine, like you know what I'm saying, like
Mhm.
how our medicine didn't even function the way it did about
Keep
100 years ago. Imagine if people really knew how herbal medicine really worked. Like you know what I'm saying. The reason why they don't want you to know how it really works is because someone's getting kickbacks on the other end, because someone's
right,
making money off of it. Like you know what I'm saying. There's
right.
this thing that's what I'm saying. Even if you white supremacy is just a tool. Racism is just a tool of the main thing, which is imperialism and capitalism.
Right.
Just
Capitalism has a symbiotic relationship
it's just that white folks took the time to like, band that shit up and wrap that shit up really well so they reap the benefits of it. But that could have went for anybody. Like you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That could have went for anybody that
there's just
thought to
some
use these tactics to create in groups and out groups to create the system that people are making money off of it. At the
there's
end of the day, it
symbiotic
all goes
relationship.
back the labor, the racism, the
Kevin,
slavery,
some people
imperialism.
believe
It
some
all
people
goes
believe
back to money.
that has to exist, that literally some sort of
They do.
oppression must exist for capitalism to succeed. Um, it's um, it's definitely a thing. This is all purposeful. So
But capitalism in itself is an issue.
yeah, can't even go there tonight. But yeah, no, it's big money in politics. Is this experiment's going down? Get your passports, everybody. I'm just saying. Kevin, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I hope that as an elder, you haven't felt belittled in any way. I am always a teacher. It is not you. I'm always trying to like make people understand things that are rather complicated. This is complex. You've been studying this your whole life. You've been living this. White folks are watching. Some of them are like, "Huh? What's systemic
No,
racism?" They
no,
don't. They
they've
they,
been living it too, child, because they're the ones
don't
doing it.
realize. They don't. Yeah. They
They
don't want to.
know. They
Right.
know.
But
They
you
know.
really have to kind of wait, like you said, you got to drop your, you got to do all this. They haven't done the work. So
Because doing the work is hard. But before we go, I just want to say that again, my name is Kevin Kramer, and I want you guys to remember that the most revolutionary thing that you can do are the decisions and actions you make for yourself. The most revolutionary thing you can do are the decisions and the actions that you make for yourself. And let one of these actions be go educate yourself. Go break down that fourth wall. Look inside yourself and look inside your heart. And there's nothing wrong with this. Everyone should do it. Ask yourself, am I racist? Am I colorist? Am I an ableist? Like, you know what I'm saying? Ask yourself because they'll it all seeps into all of us, but it's up to us to do the work that we can then go against and fight the system. And fighting the system means people power, real people power. This is real people power. This shit only spins on its axle because we all get up and go to work every single day. Why are you thinking COVID was happening, trying to force our asses to go back to work? Because this shit does not spin on its axle unless all of us get up and go to work for the 1% who are pushing racism, pushing white supremacy, pushing all this bullshit on us so that we're divided, so that we don't take the time to know that they're the ones behind the scenes.
We blame the wrong people for all of our problems. And I think on that note, that is a perfect place to end. I'm going to just clip everything else out and just have what you said there, and that'll be the entire video. And I will just double it and double it, make it like repeat itself, because that is exactly what's going on. We are being played the fools.
Yep. Like Jiminy Cricket, child.
Yep. Thank you so much for being on here.
You're so welcome.
Wonderful and hilarious too.
It's the joy. Black joy is revolutionary, baby. That's how we win.
You're adorable. All right. Great job tonight. And thank you so much for being here. And I love you, Anastasia. I did not ignore what you were saying. I was just kind of all over the place. Good night, everybody. If you believe like I do that it is way past time, don't get me started, for white America to take racial responsibility. Not to blame us, not to be rotten to us, just to say I'm here on the planet and I care. Then please consider checking out my videos. Some of them are rants, some of them are educational, like a teacher, some of them are professional, and some of them are just somewhere in between. All right. Please join us again for live shows every Wednesday. Actually, we're not. Next week is canceled, but we'll be back in a week after that, 9 p.m. on Wednesdays. Thanks for being here. And don't forget to subscribe, and don't be a stranger. Say hi to me. Write to me. The number is at the very, very top of the scroll in the chat, how to get a hold of me privately. I'm an open book, as far as you know. And you guys make the show. Thank you. Ronnie, thank you so much for being here. I loved a lot of your comments. They were wonderful. All right. And good night to everybody. Stay safe out there. Get your passports. I'm just saying.